It's not something you and me normally think about. We take it more as read when it comes to the laws that bind our lives, their origins. England, for most English speakers, only lawyers take an interest in precedential legal cases. This is one of those, possibly the oddest as well. And the only reason I stumbled upon it was I was wondering if there'd ever been a cryogenic centre proposed in New Zealand. Amongst that information, this tastier story cropped up in my research and took my fancy instead. Has legal ramifications 115 years after a New Zealander went before an Australian court, redefined the term property to encompass, with certain criteria I'll touch on, dead bodies, which till then said human remains were no one's to own. This decision has modern-day implications for the thousands of corpses residing in stainless steel chambers at minus 200 degrees C, dead sperm donors, that Egyptian mummy your great-great-uncle souvenired on his Nile cruise, and that's the one that your first dog gnawed half the leg off. It starts in Dunedin in 1868, under the most tragic of circumstances. As far as we know, that's because most of the recorded story, skeletal details, pun intended, come from the court testimony of a petty thief and patched together with news reports. Any internet sleuth into this case will find not everything ties together. There are also gaps in the story which I'm rather hoping someone in my vast audience of 10 subscribers can fill in. Even the name Dr. Donahue is likely to be fictitious in my opinion, probably because the true midwife was a backyard abortionist, not a GP. The main characters you're about to hear about used at times, that's when the coppers came looking, non-diplomes. I can but go with the flow. It's back to 1868, Dunedin in the South Island, the then largest city in New Zealand. A 22-year-old mother gave birth to a stillborn boy with 2 heads. In attendance was said to be Dr. Donahue. The medical term for conjoined twins of this nature is Dicephalic, parapagus, 2 heads side by side, 1 body. Conjoined twins of this nature, carried full term, are nearly always stillborn. The ones that aren't get to start their own reality TV shows. Rather than dispose of the fetus, Dr. Donahue preserved the body in liquid. Take your pick between paraffin oil or wine spirits, which I know sounds kind of super creepy today, wasn't out of the ordinary in the mid-1800s. The photos you see used in the video are real conjoined stillborns, and they are still on public display in museums in Sweden and the Netherlands. In the days before telly, a war in every month beginning with J, folks were less squeamish, viewed conjoined twins in a jar with more fascination than horror. Anyway, the story goes that Dr. Donahue is said to have kept the fetus in his surgery as a great conversation starter till he popped his clogs in 1870. To save you looking, I couldn't find a Dr. Donahue in Dunedin at that time, nor for that matter a doctor with the surname Donahue or Donaghy, spelt both ways. Stick with me, people. Donahue's estate was auctioned off, and one of the items was the fetus in the jar, and this was said to have been purchased by Abraham Doodeward, which can't have been true. He would have been 12 or 13 at the time. More likely, the George Street barber and tobacconist, his father, is Samuel Doodeward. Samuel is well documented. Let's face it, viewers, the origin story of how the family got their mitts on the conjoined twins, as outlined in the following court case, is as dodgy as hell. If Samuel was the one to make the purchase, he kept it quiet. He didn't have it on display in a shop, which, in case you don't know, Dunedin was one of the main streets. In contrast, Samuel Doodeward's son, Abraham, the one who told most of the origin tale via his son Reuben, was less shall we say, law-abiding, not that keen on a day's work. Amongst his rap sheet, burglary, handling stolen goods and illegal street hawking, coupled with owing money all around town. One of Abraham's income streams was the old man's fetus in a jar, a ready way to rouse up some coinage from inquisitive Dunedinites. Throw a few pennies his way and the street hawker would remove the blankets covering the jar. You'd get a minute to ogle at the sight. The police and squeamish public weren't too keen on this activity. Abraham played them at their own game. Facing charges of illegal street hawking and unlicensed entertainment, he would legitimise his activity, apply for a licence along with the annual fee of 5 shillings. This application went in front of a full meeting of the council in Dunedin in 1874. By then, the police had decided to drop charges of unlicensed entertainment. The vote went 5 for granting Doodeward Jr. his licence to display the fetus, 5 against, on what the newspaper of the day indicated were humanitarian grounds. One of those against was the Presbyterian-like mayor, who got to cast his deciding vote. No was the answer. A harsh lesson both Abraham and later his son Reuben took on board. As we now jump forward to the other side of the Tasman, but before we do so, this isn't the first video I've done featuring what passed as entertainment at the time, slightly deranged individuals. That's Felix Tanner, his giant wooden ark, cum barrel. He planned to circumvent the globe in that, starting in Nelson. Spoiler alert, he didn't make it far. Mr. Tanner also starved himself, and punters would pay to see him gradually deteriorate, and heaps of other dubious activities. Another oh my god, Captain LORRIANE, was of the daredevil ilk, roped his wife in for good measure, was last seen blown out to sea off the coast of Christchurch. Links for both those less than 10-minute videos are at the end and in the description.
Now, back to the main feature.
Skip to 1884, 200 kilometres from Sydney, the countrified city of Bathurst, best known these days for the annual supercar race, who should pop up in the sideshow section of the annual A&P show, then none other than Abraham Doodeward, exhibiting you-know-what. By then, Abraham had his own son, Reuben, who we'll meet shortly. Reuben's fishy family testimony being the prime historical source. Abraham's exhibit didn't go down too well with the locals. He found himself in court facing a charge of vagrancy and displaying an obnoxious exhibition, trading without a licence, for which he got 3 days in the slammer. The trial on Abraham goes cold in and about 1900. The family heirloom is now passed on to Reuben, who also embraces the family trade, hawking, carnival carny, grey market activities. This is when we get to the crux. It's 1906. The Sydney cricket grounds have been used for a public school sporting carnival, not the kind of occasion to be erecting a tent, then attracting young minds inside with a calico rendition of a 2-headed baby for the princely sum of 1 penny. As one would presume, parents weren't too keen on their lads being kept awake with nightmares for the next few nights. The coppers were called in. Reuben Doodeward was made to take the tent down, facing charges. The fetus seized as evidence. Grandson Doodeward was not a happy chappy. To use a cricketing term, he went on the front foot. For brevity, I will now take out a large chunk of the drab legal posturing. He sued the estate of New South Wales, the police, claiming they had stolen his property. The state's argument to start with was dead bodies can't be property, which was actually the case at the time. The police also claim Doodeward had
unlawfully, wickedly, scandalously exhibited to the sight and view of persons the naked dead body of a child with 2 heads.
In short, you could see his dick. Reuben countered the police, Spence being the arresting officer and the one mentioned in the case file, that they had stolen his property, relating that vague origin story he'd been told by his old man. Reminded the court his old man had taken it around New South Wales carnivals and fairs for a good 2 decades, may have faced some kickback, but they never stripped it off him. The coppers then painted Doodeward as the villain of the piece, hyperbolically describing him as displaying
a dead-born fetal monster
and
a freak of nature.
Regardless of the state's character assassination, Reuben Doodeward won, even after the pissed-off police took the case to the London Privy Council, who rubber-stamped the New South Wales High Court decision that Doodeward had legally obtained the fetus, inherited it, and he was entitled to its return, as well as to exhibit, as preservation process gave it a distinct attributes, making it a form of a movable exhibition. To cut through that legalese, the 1908 ruling we live with today in some form established that human biological material could be treated as property if legally obtained or through work or skill, granting the processor rights to retain or use it. This is where I'm going to leave at this number. If you're a legal buff, the entire proceedings are a Google click away, and clearly there is a lot, and I mean lot, that went on in the lives of the 2 colourful characters, Samuel and Reuben Doodeward, that I've been unable to uncover, could well be hidden behind the paywalls of historic records in the Australian newspapers. If you can elaborate us as to more mischief-making, the fate of the fetus, do let us know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this rather noir, sketchy story. Don't forget to take a gaze at those 2 other complimentary videos, death-defying acts, use of a guillotine as a prop, time for me to get back into my freezing metal chamber, say g'day to Walt Disney's head. Bye for now.